At the bustling airport, on what seemed like an ordinary morning, a young black teenager stood nervously, clutching his ticket, excitement brimming in his eyes. He was about to board a flight to the opportunity of a lifetime, or so he thought. Can you imagine facing a dream-crushing moment before even stepping on the plane? Stay tuned to Dark Stories to find out what happened next. Little did he know, a single act of prejudice at the check-in counter would set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. What happened next is a story of resilience, unexpected kindness, and a twist you won't see coming. Want to know how one moment of despair turned into a life-altering triumph? Keep watching Dark Stories to uncover Marcus's incredible journey. The airport buzzed with the chaotic symphony of rolling suitcases, distant announcements, and hurried footsteps. Marcus Carter stood just outside the check-in line, his fingers gripping the straps of his worn backpack. Inside it were neatly folded clothes, a math textbook, and a folder containing everything he needed for the international STEM competition, a dream he had worked tirelessly to reach. The teenager exhaled slowly, his breath steadying the flutter of nerves in his chest. This was his first time flying alone. His mother, who worked double shifts as a nurse, had sacrificed much to afford his ticket. Her parting words echoed in his mind, "You've earned this, Marcus. Show them what you're made of." The line moved forward, and Marcus approached the counter. Behind it stood a sharp-featured woman in her mid-40s, her name tag reading Miss Robbins. Her eyes scanned him with a fleeting look of disapproval before she forced a tight smile. "Good morning," Marcus greeted, his voice polite but soft as he slid his confirmation papers and ID across the counter. Miss Robbins gave them a cursory glance before tapping her keyboard. "You're flying to Chicago?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied, his excitement bubbling under the surface, but he kept it restrained. Her brows furrowed as she scrutinized the screen. There seems to be an issue with your ticket." Marcus's stomach sank. "An issue?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern. "I confirmed everything last night. Is something wrong?" Miss Robbins clicked her tongue, her disapproving gaze locking onto him. "It says here that this ticket might be invalid." "Do you even have the means to pay for a ticket like this?" The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. A flush of embarrassment crept up his neck as the people in line behind him began to glance in his direction. He straightened his posture, his voice firm but respectful. "My ticket is valid, ma'am. My school purchased it. Maybe it's a system error." Miss Robbins let out a condescending laugh, shaking her head. "System error, honey? This isn't a lottery where just anyone gets a ticket. Step aside so I can help someone who actually belongs here." The humiliation stung like a slap. Marcus felt his throat tighten, but he swallowed the lump that threatened to form. He stepped aside, clutching his backpack like a lifeline. His mind raced, searching for a solution. Should he call his teacher? But the flight was boarding in less than an hour, would there be enough time? As Marcus stood helplessly by the counter, his ears burned from the whispers of the passengers behind him. Words like "poor kid" and "probably tried to scam his way in" floated in the air, each one twisting the knife in his heart. Suddenly, a voice cut through the murmur. "What seems to be the problem here?" The voice carried an air of authority, sharp yet calm. Marcus turned to see a tall woman with a confident stride approaching the counter. Her tailored navy blue blazer bore the insignia of the airline, and her name badge read Evelyn Grant, Executive Operations Manager. She had the commanding presence of someone who could resolve any issue. Miss Robbins stiffened. "Oh, Miss Grant, there's no problem, just a little misunderstanding." Evelyn's sharp eyes shifted to Marcus, her expression softening as she took in the young man's tense stance and the unshed tears brimming in his eyes. "Misunderstanding," she repeated, her tone growing icy. "Let me see his ticket." Miss Robbins hesitated but reluctantly handed over the documents. Evelyn studied them briefly, her brows knitting in disapproval. She turned back to Marcus. "Your ticket is perfectly valid," she said, her voice calm but firm. Marcus blinked in surprise. "It is?" "But she said—" "I know what she said," Evelyn interrupted gently, her gaze shifting to Miss Robbins, now visibly uncomfortable. "And I'll be addressing it. But first, let's make sure you get to your gate." Evelyn extended her hand toward Marcus. For a moment, he hesitated, unsure if this was truly happening. Then, with a small nod, he handed over his documents. The executive's presence felt like a shield, deflecting the judgmental stares from the crowd. "Come with me," Evelyn said, her tone leaving no room for argument. As they walked toward the security checkpoint, Marcus felt a mix of relief and apprehension. He glanced back at Miss Robbins, who now stood frozen at the counter, her lips pressed into a thin line, a storm brewing in her eyes. But Evelyn didn't look back. The humiliated agent's words echoed in Marcus's mind, but Evelyn's calm assurance began to drown them out. For the first time that morning, a spark of hope ignited within him. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be the end of his journey. As they reached the checkpoint, Evelyn leaned down slightly, her voice quieter now. "Tell me, Marcus, what's in Chicago?" The teenager straightened his shoulders, his earlier apprehension melting away. "A STEM competition," he said, pride evident in his voice. "I'm representing my school." Evelyn's lips curved into a small, approving smile. "Well, Marcus, let's make sure you get there. No one gets to tell you where you belong." With those words, something shifted in Marcus's chest, a sense of possibility blooming where shame had taken root. Little did he know, this moment would mark the beginning of a life-changing journey. Marcus followed Evelyn through the airport with a mixture of awe and disbelief. He wasn't used to people stepping in for him, not like this. His mother always taught him to rely on himself, to solve his problems with determination and hard work. But this time, no amount of effort could have undone the humiliation he had just experienced. As they approached the security checkpoint, Evelyn handed Marcus's documents to the officer without a word. The officer glanced at her badge and gave a quick nod, waving them through without delay. Marcus couldn't help but marvel at how effortlessly she commanded respect. Once they were past the checkpoint, Evelyn slowed her pace, her sharp gaze softening as she turned to him. "How are you holding up?" she asked. Marcus hesitated, his hands tightening on the straps of his backpack. He wasn't sure how to respond. "I'm okay, I guess," he said quietly. "Thank you for helping me. I didn't know what I was going to do back there." Evelyn stopped walking and crouched slightly to meet his eyes. "You shouldn't have had to go through that," she said firmly. "People like Miss Robbins think they can get away with treating others unfairly, but I won't allow it. Not on my watch." Her words, laced with quiet fury, sent a wave of relief through Marcus. For the first time, he felt like someone was truly on his side. I didn't want to cause a scene," he admitted, his voice tinged with embarrassment. "I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, it would all work out." Evelyn's expression softened further, and she placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Staying quiet only helps people like her get away with it," she said. "You have every right to stand up for yourself, Marcus. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." Her words hit him harder than he expected, stirring something deep within him. Marcus nodded, a small flicker of resolve igniting in his chest. "Now," Evelyn continued, straightening up and resuming their walk, "tell me more about this competition." "STEM, right? What's your specialty?" Marcus's face lit up despite himself. "Engineering," he said, the pride in his voice unmistakable. "I'm part of a team building a prototype for a sustainable energy generator. We've been working on it for months." Evelyn arched a brow, clearly impressed. "That's ambitious," she said. "And you're representing your school? That's a big deal." "It is," Marcus said, his excitement bubbling to the surface. "Our school doesn't have a lot of resources, so we had to get creative. My mom even helped us raise money for the materials." Evelyn smiled at the mention of his mother. "She must be proud of you." Marcus's smile faltered slightly, his thoughts briefly drifting to her exhausted face as she hugged him goodbye that morning. "She is," he said quietly. "She's done so much for me. I don't want to let her down." Evelyn glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "You're not letting anyone down," she said firmly. "In fact, I think you're doing the exact opposite." They reached the gate, where a crowd of passengers waited for boarding to begin. Evelyn led Marcus to the counter, where the gate agent looked up in surprise. "Miss Grant," the agent greeted, his tone respectful. "How can I assist you?" "This young man is flying to Chicago," Evelyn said, her tone authoritative but calm. "Please ensure he's taken care of." The agent nodded quickly, printing a new boarding pass without question. "Of course, ma'am. I'll make sure he's all set." Evelyn handed the pass to Marcus, who stared at it as if it were a golden ticket. "Thank you," he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn smiled warmly. "You're welcome. Now, I've arranged for you to sit in first class. Consider it an apology on behalf of the airline." Marcus's eyes widened. "First class? But I don't need." Evelyn raised a hand to stop him. "You deserve it," she said simply. "Besides, I'll feel better knowing you're comfortable after what happened." Marcus was at a loss for words. All he could do was nod, his gratitude evident in his expression. As the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, Evelyn reached into her pocket and handed him a small business card. "If you ever need anything," she said, "don't hesitate to reach out. And when you win that competition, let me know. I'd love to hear about it." Marcus took the card, his hands trembling slightly. The words "Evelyn Grant, Executive Operations Manager" stared back at him in bold print, followed by her contact information. "Thank you," he said again, his voice steadier this time. Evelyn nodded, her expression softening. "Good luck, Marcus. And remember, don't let anyone tell you where you belong." With that, she stepped back, watching as he boarded the plane. As Marcus disappeared into the cabin, Evelyn's expression shifted, her warm smile giving way to a steely resolve. She turned on her heel, heading back toward the terminal with purpose. She had unfinished business to attend to. Evelyn Grant strode purposefully through the terminal, her heels clicking against the polished floor like a metronome. The warm satisfaction of helping Marcus had been replaced by a simmering anger, and she knew exactly where to channel it. She retraced her steps to the check-in counter, where Miss Robbins was stationed. The agent stood stiffly, her lips pressed into a tight line as she interacted with a passenger. Evelyn folded her arms and waited, her piercing gaze fixed on the woman. When the passenger moved on, Miss Robbins turned, her face draining of color as she saw Evelyn standing there. "Miss Grant," she stammered, forcing a smile. "I didn't expect you to return so soon." "I'm sure." "You didn't," Evelyn said coolly. She placed her hands on the counter, leaning slightly forward. "We need to have a conversation. Now." Miss Robbins glanced around nervously, her eyes darting to the line of passengers. "Perhaps we can talk later?" "It's quite busy now," Evelyn repeated, her tone brooking no argument. The agent's shoulders slumped as she nodded reluctantly. She stepped away from the counter, motioning for a colleague to take over, and followed Evelyn to a nearby office. Once inside, Evelyn closed the door firmly behind them. "Would you like to explain what happened back there?" Evelyn began, her voice sharp and unyielding. Miss Robbins swallowed hard. "I was just following protocol," she said defensively. "The boy's ticket seemed suspicious." "Suspicious?" Evelyn interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "There was nothing suspicious about his ticket, and you know it. I reviewed it myself. So let's not waste time pretending this was about protocol." Miss Robbins hesitated, her hands fidgeting at her sides. "I was just trying to do my job." "Your job," Evelyn said, her voice growing colder, "is to provide excellent customer service, to treat every passenger with dignity and respect. What I witnessed was the complete opposite." The agent opened her mouth to protest, but Evelyn cut her off. "Let me be clear," she said, her tone like ice. "Your behavior was discriminatory, unprofessional, and unacceptable. You humiliated a young man who did nothing to deserve it. And this isn't the first time, is it?" Miss Robbins paled further. "I don't know what you mean." Evelyn reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a tablet. She tapped the screen a few times before turning it toward Miss Robbins. "These are complaints filed by passengers over the past 6 months," she said. "All of them describe encounters with a rude and dismissive agent. You. And this is just what's been officially documented. I shudder to think how many others chose not to report their experience. Miss Robbins's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I didn't mean to. Evelyn raised a hand to silence her. Intent doesn't matter. Impact does. And the impact of your actions could have cost that boy his opportunity, a boy who, might I add, was representing his school in a national competition. The agent looked down, her face flushing with shame. I'm placing you on immediate suspension, Evelyn continued, her voice resolute. You'll be required to attend mandatory training on diversity and inclusion during this time. Your conduct will be thoroughly reviewed. If I find even a hint of further misconduct, you will be terminated. Miss Robbins's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. Please, Miss Grant, this is non-negotiable, Evelyn said firmly. I suggest you use this time to reflect on your behavior and make the necessary changes. If you can't, there's no place for you in this company. With that, Evelyn turned and opened the door, signaling the end of the conversation. Miss Robbins stood frozen for a moment before slinking out of the office, her head bowed. Evelyn watched her leave, a mix of satisfaction and frustration swirling within her. She hated having to deal with employees like Miss Robbins, but she knew it was her responsibility to uphold the company's values. She wouldn't tolerate discrimination on her watch, not today, not ever. As Evelyn walked back to her office, her mind returned to Marcus. She couldn't shake the image of him standing at the counter, clutching his backpack and trying to remain composed despite the humiliation. When she reached her desk, she picked up her phone and dialed a number. Hello, this is Evelyn Grant, she said when the line connected. I'd like to speak with the CEO about a potential scholarship program. Yes, it's urgent. She leaned back in her chair, her determination unwavering. Helping Marcus get to Chicago was only the beginning. If she had her way, his story would inspire the kind of systemic change that would ensure no one else had to endure what he did. This wasn't just about righting a wrong, it was about creating opportunities. Because Marcus Carter wasn't just a teenager, he was the future, and Evelyn Grant intended to make sure he had every chance to succeed. Marcus sat in the luxurious first-class seat, still feeling as though he was dreaming. The wide leather cushion cradled him in comfort, and the spacious legroom was a far cry from the cramped rows he'd expected in economy. A flight attendant approached with a warm smile, offering him a menu of refreshments. Marcus blinked at her, unsure how to respond. Would you like something to drink? She asked kindly. Just water, please, Marcus replied, his voice cautious. He wasn't used to being treated like this, like he mattered. As the attendant walked away, Marcus leaned back in his seat, trying to process everything that had happened in the past hour. The humiliation at the counter, Miss Grant stepping in, the first-class upgrade, it all felt surreal. He glanced out the window, watching the airport staff bustle below as the plane prepared for takeoff. His mind wandered to the competition. Would the judges be impressed with his team's prototype? Would they dismiss him like so many others had before? A familiar knot of doubt tightened in his stomach, but he pushed it aside. Focus on what you can control, Marcus, he told himself. You've made it this far. The soft chime of the captain's voice broke his thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. We'll be departing shortly for Chicago with an estimated flight time of 2 hours. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened and enjoy the flight. The plane began to taxi, the vibrations beneath him sending a thrill through his chest. Marcus had read about the physics of flight in textbooks, but experiencing it firsthand was something else entirely. As the plane sped down the runway and lifted into the air, a small smile tugged at his lips. For the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of excitement. As the plane leveled out, Marcus noticed a man seated across the aisle watching him with a curious expression. The man, in his mid-50s, was dressed in a crisp suit, his silver hair neatly combed. He offered Marcus a polite nod. First time flying, the man asked, his voice friendly. Marcus hesitated before nodding. Yeah, first time in first class too, he admitted. The man chuckled. It's a nice way to travel, isn't it? What brings you to Chicago? Marcus hesitated again, unsure how much to share, but something about the man's kind demeanor put him at ease. "I'm going to a STEM competition," he said. "My team built a prototype for a sustainable energy generator." The man raised his eyebrows, clearly impressed. "That's no small feat, you must be quite the engineer." Marcus shrugged, his modesty kicking in. "It's a team effort. We've been working on it for months." "Well, I hope you knocked their socks off," the man said. "The world needs more innovators like you." Marcus smiled shyly. "Thanks." The man extended his hand. "James Carter," he said. Marcus blinked in surprise at the coincidence of their shared last name. "Marcus Carter," he replied, shaking the man's hand. James laughed. "Looks like we're distant relatives," he joked. "Well, Marcus Carter, I wish you the best of luck. Maybe one day I'll see your name in the headlines." The idea made Marcus chuckle nervously. "Maybe," he said, though the thought seemed far-fetched. As the flight continued, Marcus pulled out his notebook and began reviewing his team's plans for the competition. His sketches of the prototype filled the pages, detailed and precise. The design wasn't just an assignment, it was a piece of him, a testament to his determination and creativity. But as he studied the notes, his thoughts drifted back to the airport counter. The sting of Miss Robbins's words lingered, threatening to sap his confidence. He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to focus. "You belong here," he whispered to himself, repeating Evelyn's words. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The memory of her unwavering support gave him strength. He thought about his mother, working tirelessly back home, and the sacrifices she had made to get him to this point. He wouldn't let them down, not now, not ever. As the plane began its descent, James leaned over again. "Marcus," he said, "when you win that competition, and I have a feeling you will remember to celebrate. Hard work deserves to be recognized." Marcus grinned, his earlier nervousness replaced by a flicker of confidence. "Thanks, Mr. Carter. I'll keep that in mind." The man smiled warmly. "You take care of yourself, Marcus, and keep dreaming big." As the plane touched down in Chicago, Marcus felt a surge of determination. He wasn't just here to compete, he was here to prove that his dreams were valid, no matter what obstacles stood in his way. Little did he know, his journey was only just beginning. The cab ride from O'Hare Airport to the convention center was a blur of towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, but Marcus barely noticed. His mind raced with anticipation as he clutched his backpack, which now felt heavier than it had on the plane. Inside it lay not just the blueprints for his team's prototype but the weight of his hopes and the sacrifices that had brought him here. The cab pulled up to the sprawling convention center, its glass facade gleaming under the midday sun. Marcus stepped out, his breath catching at the sight of the massive banners hanging above the entrance. They read, "International STEM Innovation Competition 2024. Around him, students and mentors from all over the country bustled in, their voices a mix of excitement and nerves. "This is it," Marcus whispered to himself, tightening the straps of his backpack. He squared his shoulders and walked through the revolving doors, the hum of activity growing louder with every step. Inside, the convention center was a whirlwind of activity. Booths lined the expansive hall, each one showcasing the work of brilliant young minds. Marcus found his team's designated area, a small booth with a table, a display board, and an outlet for their equipment. His teammates, Mia and Jordan, were already setting up. "Marcus!" Mia called, her face lighting up. She was the team's programmer, her sharp mind complemented by an infectious enthusiasm. "You made it." "We were starting to worry." "Barely," Marcus said with a small laugh. "You wouldn't believe the morning I had." Jordan, the team's logistical guru, glanced up from his laptop. "Good to see you, man. You ready for this?" Marcus nodded, though the flutter of nerves in his stomach persisted. "Let's do it." Together, the team unpacked their prototype, a sleek, compact model of a sustainable energy generator. It was the culmination of months of late nights, trial and error, and relentless determination. Marcus ran his fingers over the polished metal casing, pride swelling in his chest. "This is going to blow them away," Mia said confidently. "We've got this." Hours later, the team stood before the judges in a room that felt far larger than it actually was. The panel of 5 industry leaders sat at a long table, their expressions unreadable as they leafed through the team's proposal. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped forward. He had volunteered to lead the presentation, a choice that felt bold at the time but now filled him with apprehension. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "We're Team Horizon, and this is our prototype for a sustainable energy generator." He launched into the presentation, explaining the design's key features, the innovative materials they used, and the potential for real-world application. As he spoke, his confidence grew. The judges leaned forward, their interest evident. And Marcus felt the room shift in their favor. Mia demonstrated the software integration, while Jordan explained the logistics of scaling the design for larger communities. Marcus concluded with a passionate appeal, emphasizing the importance of innovation in addressing global energy challenges. "This isn't just a project," he said, his voice firm. "It's a vision for a future where sustainable energy is accessible to everyone. And we believe that future starts here." After the presentation, the judges asked questions, sharp, probing ones that tested the team's knowledge and adaptability. Marcus fielded most of them, his earlier nerves replaced by a quiet confidence. He didn't have all the answers, but he met each question head-on, refusing to back down. When the session ended, the judges nodded, thanked the team, and moved on to the next booth. Marcus exhaled deeply, the tension in his shoulders finally releasing. "We did it," Mia said, her eyes shining. "Marcus, you crushed it." "You both did too," Marcus replied, a smile breaking across his face. For the first time all day, he allowed himself to feel the hope that had been building inside him. As the day wore on, Marcus wandered the convention floor, marveling at the creativity and brilliance on display. But as the evening approached, his focus returned to the main stage, where the awards ceremony was set to take place. The room filled with competitors, mentors, and spectators, the air buzzing with anticipation as the host took the stage, a charismatic figure who expertly built suspense with every word. Finally, the moment came. "And the winner of the International STEM Innovation Competition 2024 is," the host paused dramatically, the tension palpable. "Team Horizon." For a moment, Marcus couldn't move. The words felt unreal, echoing in his ears. Then Mia grabbed his arm, and Jordan clapped him on the back, their cheers snapping him out of his daze. They hurried to the stage, where the host handed them a gleaming trophy. Cameras flashed as Marcus held it high, his heart swelling with pride. He looked out at the crowd and spotted Evelyn Grant standing near the back, her smile warm and approving. After the ceremony, Evelyn approached Marcus, her expression filled with pride. "Congratulations," she said. "I knew you'd do it." "Thank you," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." Evelyn shook her head. "You did this because of your hard work and talent. I just made sure you had the chance to show it." She handed him an envelope. "This is from the airline. It's a scholarship offer, full tuition to any university you choose, along with a mentorship program in aviation and engineering." Marcus stared at her, speechless. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Evelyn said with a smile. "You've earned it." Tears pricked the corners of Marcus's eyes as he accepted the envelope. In that moment, he realized this wasn't just a victory, it was the beginning of something much bigger, a future filled with possibilities he hadn't dared to dream of before. And as he walked out of the convention center that night, the trophy in one hand and the scholarship letter in the other, Marcus knew he had proven to himself and the world that he belonged exactly where he was. The drive back to the hotel was quieter than Marcus expected. His teammates were animated, buzzing about their win and the opportunities it would bring, but Marcus sat silently, staring out of the cab window. The city lights blurred past, mirroring the rush of emotions swirling inside him: pride, gratitude, disbelief, and a lingering thread of uncertainty. "Marcus," Mia said gently, pulling him from his thoughts. "You okay?" He turned to her, managing a small smile. "Yeah, just processing everything. It still doesn't feel real." Jordan grinned from the front seat. "Believe it, Man. We just made history. Marcus nodded, his grip tightening on the trophy resting on his lap. History, he thought. The weight of that word settled in his chest. He wasn't just representing himself or his team, he was carrying the hopes of his community, the sacrifices of his mother, and the belief that people like him belonged in spaces like this. That night, after his teammates had gone to bed, Marcus sat alone in his hotel room, the trophy gleaming on the desk beside him. He stared at his phone, hesitating before dialing his mother's number. It rang twice before her familiar voice answered, weary but filled with love. "Marcus, how are you, baby? Did you get there okay? How was the competition?" Her questions came in a rapid stream, and Marcus couldn't help but smile. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking slightly, "we won." There was a beat of silence before her laughter bubbled through the line, full of joy and relief. "Oh, Marcus, I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you." Marcus swallowed the lump in his throat. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. All those nights you stayed up with me, all the extra shifts you worked, this is as much your win as it is mine." Her voice softened. "No, baby, this is yours. You earned this. I'm just glad I could help you get there." They talked late into the night, sharing the details of the competition and the scholarship offer from the airline. By the time they hung up, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just doing this for himself, he was doing it for his mother and everyone who had ever doubted they could reach for something greater. The next morning, as Marcus packed his belongings, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Evelyn Grant standing there, her expression unreadable. "Good morning, Marcus," she said. "Mind if we talk for a moment?" "Of course," Marcus replied, stepping aside to let her in. Evelyn glanced around the room, her eyes landing on the trophy. "Looks good on you," she said with a small smile. "Thank you," Marcus said. "I still can't believe it." Evelyn nodded, her expression turning serious. "I wanted to see you before you left because I think you're going to face some challenges going forward." Marcus's brow furrowed. "Challenges?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "You've achieved something remarkable, but there will always be people who try to diminish your success, people who will question if you belong in this space." Her words echoed the doubts Marcus had battled for years. "How do I deal with that?" he asked. "You prove them wrong," Evelyn said simply. "Every day, you keep pushing forward, keep breaking barriers. And when you've reached the top, you turn around and help others do the same." Marcus nodded slowly, her words sinking in. "I'll do my best." "I know you will," Evelyn said. She handed him a folder. "This is a detailed mentorship program we've designed specifically for you. It includes introductions to industry leaders, internships, and funding for any projects you want to pursue. Use it wisely." Marcus opened the folder, his eyes widening at the opportunities laid out before him. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "Just make the most of it," Evelyn replied. "And remember, Marcus, you're not just building a career, you're paving the way for others." The flight home felt different. Marcus sat in the economy cabin this time, but it didn't matter. He was heading back not just as a competitor but as a winner. The trophy sat safely in his lap, a tangible reminder of what he was capable of achieving. When the plane touched down, he was greeted by his mother, who enveloped him in a tight hug the moment he stepped off the plane. Tears streamed down her face as she held him, her pride evident in every word she spoke. "You did it," she whispered. "I knew you would." As they drove home, Marcus couldn't help but think about everything that had brought him to this moment, the struggle at the airport, Evelyn's intervention, the long hours of preparation. It had all led to this. But he knew it was only the beginning. Back at school, Marcus's win sparked a wave of excitement and inspiration. Teachers and students alike congratulated him, and his story became a source of pride for the entire community. But Marcus didn't let the attention distract him. He threw himself into mentoring younger students, sharing his knowledge and encouraging them to dream big. The scholarship from the airline opened doors he hadn't dared to imagine. With Evelyn's guidance, he secured an internship at a leading engineering firm, where he began developing a larger version of his team's prototype. His work attracted attention from industry leaders, and soon he was invited to present at conferences and collaborate on groundbreaking projects. But through it all, Marcus remained grounded. He never forgot the struggles that had shaped him or the people who had lifted him when he needed it most. And as he stood on the stage years later, delivering a keynote speech at a global innovation summit, he looked out at the crowd and saw a young boy in the front row, wide-eyed and full of wonder. Marcus smiled, recognizing himself in that boy. "You belong here," he said, his voice strong and steady. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Don't miss more inspiring stories like Marcus's. Subscribe to Dark Stories and hit the bell icon to stay updated.